there's one thing that only CJ Maraga can say that the rest of the political, I would say, legacies can't say. And that is when he says, my first thing, if he says, when I come into power, will be to recover.
To recover?
Recover everything that's stolen from the Kenyan people.
The lost glory of Kenya?
Yeah. If he says that, he's the only one who can be able to say that. Because the rest, it will touch on their own property. They have stolen from Kenyan people. All of them. They have a scandal. All of them. They cannot say recover. Because it would mean some of the property that they have stolen from the Kenyan people will have to be given back. He's the only one who can say recover. As the first thing in his agenda, in the first 100 days, there are enough reports. TGRC is one of them. If he just says that, I will implement that, my first 100 days, I will focus on recovery. Nobody else can say that. They will be afraid of that coming to their own house. When you start to bring God into your statements, you know, it's a way to fool the masses because unfortunately, we are a country that we say we pray, we go to church every day. And I normally tell people, by the way, Jesus, if he was in our time, alive and with us in Kenya, he would be an activist. He would be on the streets. Yeah. Jesus would be on the streets. And I'll say this because even when you see the story of him going to the temple and it's a marketplace and he gets angry and he throws things around. Jesus, mixing money with the church, totally against it. It is the temple. It's a place of worship. Jesus would have been an activist. By the time you're talking about mobilizing like 100 people, let's say you pay each of them 2K. Okay, how much is that?
200,000.
200,000, okay. That's just for one day. That's just one day. Now, the protests, they're to continue and you keep sending them out. And we're 2 years to an election, okay? Let's say there are 2 protests in a week. That's 500,000 in a week. Now, you're doing that for a year and a half. Will you be able to sustain that?
This snake could come back and bite the owner.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they realize that they are awakening a monster that they cannot continue to feed. And what worries me is the more you utilize them, now even the more confident and organized they become. Like Tuesday was a bit chaotic. They were not quite sure. Tunawapiga, tunaiba. Are we going to go to stores? That's why you saw some of them missing the mission and going and stealing computers. They have lost focus, okay? But then now, imagine they begin to now have a system.
An organized crime unit.
An organized crime unit that now, even you'll be like, but you are the ones who give them the bravado. You're the ones who gave them that confidence. How are you going to demobilize them?
Truly delighted to have you on Richard Mwenja Exclusive, your only point of call on matters political and governance analysis in Kenya and across the region. I'm happy to have you on board, and today Nerima Wako makes a comeback on the show after a 2-week break. She is the executive director, Siasa Place. Nerima, great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Where have you been though for the last 2 weeks? Out and about?
Out and about. Traveled, was in Denmark, did a bit of learning, and observing.
Benchmarking.
Parliament, yes. Actually, the thing that really shocked me about Parliament is people were protesting at the steps of Parliament, and politicians were just passing, and there was no, that police it's just open, and I was like, so people are allowed to protest this close? They're like, yeah. Every day you'll find protesters. You just give them the room. They have their issue. Then they showed me another corner. There was someone guarding like a poster on peace. And they're like, you see that one over there? Been coming for 10 years. Every day.
No water cannons? No tear gas?
None. And by the way, the thing that shocked me about also their members of parliament, their ministers, they were casual. People were wearing jeans, like casual, like the speaker was
Elected
just
members
in
of parliament.
jeans and a blazer. Yeah. I was like, wow, you guys are casual. They're like, yeah, but, you know, we are elected by the people, so we want to look like one of the people. So why do we dress so fancy? And most of the ordinary citizens would dress like this. So we're one of the people. It was an interesting trip.
I know that it was all about false humility from those members of parliament over there.
Maybe, but it works. It works for them because they are reachable. Actually, they are approachable, and there's a lot of freedom of expression. So that was just interesting to see that people can agree. The party leader, opposition, they would discuss. You can't even tell they are disagreeing on an issue. There's just this sense of how can we come to a compromise, which was interesting to me. Yeah.
Talking about our leaders espousing humility out here, there is one gentleman who really takes that even on a higher pedestal. That is former CJ Emeritus David Maraga, who actually within the last few days has officially announced his presidential bid come 2027 general elections. And yes, Kenyans have warmed up to this to his candidature, but some could also be harboring fears of, is Maraga also going to kickstart this journey by trying to speak to the pockets of the electorate just so to inform their vote in 2027 elections, or is going to go outside the traditional politicking and really speak to the hearts of Kenyans about their issues? What's your take on that?
I think he's going to go outside when a lot of his conversations is around rule of law, which what we have been seeing is disobedience of court orders. We're seeing the police, they are not within the rule of law. And there's one thing that only CJ Maraga can say that the rest of the political, I would say, legacies can't say. And that is when he says, my first thing, if he says, when I come into power, will be to recover.
To recover?
Recover everything that's stolen from the Kenyan people.
The lost glory of Kenya?
Yeah. If he says that, he's the only one who can be able to say that. Because the rest, it will touch on their own property. They have stolen from Kenyan people. All of them. They have a scandal. All of them. They cannot say recover. Because it would mean some of the property that they have stolen from the Kenyan people will have to be given back. He's the only one who can say recover. As the first thing in his agenda, in the first 100 days, there are enough reports. TGRC is one of them. If he just says that, I will implement that, my first 100 days, I will focus on recovery. Nobody else can say that. They will be afraid of that coming to their own house.
I hate the idea of the first 100 days in office, because now we are talking about President Ruto's over 1,000 days in office. He spoke about Nikiweka Biblia Chini, the first 100 days in office, the first 6 months. It's now 2 years later on. Do you think also Maraga should not really go on talking about timelines, but really just walk the talk, should he get the seat? But
he has been showing that he walks the talk. I think he's the only one who actually says what the law says. When the annulment of 2017 election, from dissolving parliament, he's the only one who said it needs to be dissolved because it doesn't meet 2/3. So he says, the people who are supposed to implement, which was the members of parliament in that case, or they were supposed to dissolve, the president is the one. Uhuru didn't. Uhuru didn't act. So he's someone who says and he's willing to act. But when you have other arms, because he was heading judiciary. True. So when the judiciary, the head of judiciary said dissolve, it should have taken the other arms to say agreed. They didn't. And so he's one that acts. And the reason why I'm mentioning them is because they are now heading. So we had Ruto at the time. He was in leadership at that time. He didn't act. So we've seen he doesn't act with the rule of law. So I don't know how we're expecting him to meet a promise. Yet, even under Uhuru, we saw that they were not acting on several things. So 1,000 days under Ruto has shown us what he has been showing us, that he lies. There's no thing that he says that he implements and actually does. But with Maraga, it's a different story. I think if he's under the leadership, then he will act because he means what he says. He doesn't just speak, and his words are very measured. And when someone speaks rarely most of the time when they speak, they have something to say. Someone who speaks every day, all the time,
Busy bodies.
busy, they have a higher percentage of lying because they're just speaking all the time consistently. That's what we're seeing with this regime.
CJ Emeritus David Maraga talks about a pledge to restore Kenya into the path of constitutionalism. And you'd wonder, Nerimu Awako, even after dispensation of the 2010 Constitution this far, why have we dragged our feet when it comes to talking about upholding the rule of law?
I feel that we speak about one thing and we do something else different. Upholding the rule of law would kick several people out of government today. They should have never been allowed to vie. There are people who have cases that are still pending. They have even implications from even corruption, scandals, murder, rape. I mean, so even when you talk about the Constitution, are people really intentional about making sure that it's implemented? Because you have to remember, when we said we wanted a new constitution, the people who are saying no are the first people who were elected. I mean, the people who are saying no were the ones who were elected under the new constitution. So of course there's no goodwill to make sure that it's implemented. No, there was no goodwill from the start. In fact, what they did was make sure that they water it down in terms of even leadership, in terms of making sure there's no conflict of interest. All we see is conflict of interest in our government. People are concerned about tenders. People are concerned about how can I make the most money for myself. So they introduce new schemes, new institutions. That's all we've seen, which is completely against the Constitution.
David Maraga believes in Ruto must go. And from the optics of President William Ruto, he says he's not going to hand over Kenya to people without a plan, whose only agenda is Ruto must go. But let's talk about the issue from the Constitution standpoint. The Constitution does not speak even about handing over. It talks about assumption to office. Do you think the president is now coming clear that he's not willing to let power go? Even if the people vote him out, he's now going to use the power of the sword to remain in power?
I don't think that is even our concern. There is a law, and the law is clear. That is not his power to hand over. He's a representative of the people, and the people decide who represents them. Him discussing it is neither here or there. We have systems that exist, and systems and Kenyans who are educated enough to want those institutions to remain, and the integrity of an institution must remain. He is leading an office. It's not about him. It's an office, and he will leave.
He will?
He will leave. People come and go. Presidents come and go. That office is not yours to keep.
At a time when he speaks about the broad-based government being a creation of God, not a creation of Raila or himself, and now that this is something that has been sanctioned by the higher powers, do you think it's going to save time for him, this broad-based government?
Let me tell you something. Hey, Munja. There are people who are praying. They are praying. When you start to bring God into your statements, you know, it's a way to fool the masses, because unfortunately we are a country that we say we pray, we go to church every day. And I normally tell people, by the way, Jesus, if he was in our time, alive and with us in Kenya, he would be an activist. He would be on the streets. Yeah, Jesus would be on the streets. And I'll say this because even when you see the story of him going to the temple and it's a marketplace, and he gets angry and he throws things around. Jesus, mixing money with the church, totally against it. It is the temple. It's a place of worship. Jesus would have been an activist. Even the way he would speak to the Pharisees in terms of them being holier than thou. Yeah. And he would mix and mingle with the scum, the lowly prostitutes. He would be an activist today. So for me, even to say that this is a creation of God, no.
Sanctioned and ordained in heaven and on earth.
No. If we really read our Bibles and understood it, we would know that God works with the underdogs. If anything, God normally works with opposition. If anything, God works with people who speak truth to power. Moses, Pharaoh, all the stories, it's against. So no, God is not on the side of Pharaoh. No.
Nerima, let's talk about the issues that have been bedeviling in our country of late, and that has to do with the police brutality on dissenting voices, or even the government regulation of independent voices space. And we're talking about the death of Albert Ojwang. We're talking about Rose Njeri being taken to court, and a few other independent voices out here who are really speaking truth to power and making a call for accountability. Do you believe that we're in a dire situation whereby independent voices are increasingly going to be under attack, despite the cases that we've taken concern with from the government behavior?
If we're not careful, yes. And I am truly proud to be Kenyan because of how vocal we are, you know. Even when you travel to neighboring countries, or even in Denmark, there's a Tanzanian I bumped into, and she was like, wow, Kenyans, you guys, we look up to you and how courageous you are in terms of speaking truth. And even with Alfred, you know, if it wasn't for public pushing, would have never known the truth. Do you know it was independent voices that stood at the morgue to know what actually happened here? And we're not going to leave because we don't want you to alter what is written in the postmortem. If it was not citizens doing that, would have never known Alfred's story. Would have never known.
Albert.
Albert. Would have never known. And the challenge that we have as Kenyans is you will see online people saying, oh, you're always making noise. Yeah. But imagine, even when Karaoke was shot, it is the Kenyan people who found out who it was.
Yeah.
In a span of hours. Hey.
Full identity was unmasked.
Hey. DCI. Hey, Kenyans are dangerous. Like, that is something that we must hold with so much regard and respect. And leaving that room for that space is what is pushing the public to hold these institutions accountable. So I would say that we must continue to protect these independent voices, because what was Njeri doing? She was talking about the finance bill. She was giving people information about it in a way that it could be broken down and understood. It was a way to participate. It's constitutional. It is constitutional. People are just making sure that the law is followed, because the institutions that are supposed to do that are not doing that. And we must never let that window close. It must remain open. Yeah.
It makes sense. Talking about Albert Ojwang's death, and so far, if you even look at the conflicting statements of accounts from authorities in place, would you say, Nerima, that there is a clear cover-up attempt from the government and those who should have really gone out to protect the life of every Kenyan who is protesting or calling the government to account in the first place?
Yes, those are cover-up, because even when you're talking about CCTV footage that went missing, then all of a sudden it pops up again. When you're talking about, you know, someone who's been taken passing I don't know how many stations, come on, to be brought to Nairobi, and then I love that confessions are coming out. Me, I'm a person of truth, and I'm glad. Mkwana was like, hey, hey, we're not going down alone.
If I'm going down, I'm going down with the entire crew.
Ship, let's go. And I'm glad, because what I'm beginning to realize is junior officers are like, hey, we are the small fish.
Sacrificial lambs.
We will be sacrificed. And you can see that occurring, because even when we talk about this particular case, imagine how many have been happening. Because there was the case of Homa Bay, there's the case of Nakuru, there's the case of Kisumu. How many have been happening? It's just that this one now has shown a light of the system and how terrible that it is, and how it continues to happen. Because when you start talking about paying people, inmates, you're like, what gangster paradise is this? Where inmates are now used to beat up, you know? He wasn't supposed to die, it was just to teach him a lesson. I mean, what are we, in The Godfather? Like, what is that? And this is a police cell. And the law is very clear in terms of how you're supposed to treat people who are within these cells. It's very clear. So when CS Murkomen comes out and says, oh, we'll do training for what?
Install CCTV cameras in every police station.
And then you will pay people to delete footage. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Even though you add the cameras,
surveillance systems,
people will still behave badly. And you know, it's one of those things where you don't need training to know that what happened was wrong.
Or you digital obese.
You don't. You don't. We're looking at the wrong thing. There's clearly problem in the police service. It's still a force. There's clearly influence in terms of politicians manipulating and moving. Honestly, stepping aside was a slap in the face to Kenyan people. It should have been a resignation. Anything like that, it should have been a resignation.
Resignation and prosecution thereafter, or just resignation?
Resignation, prosecution, and jail.
For Eliud Lagat?
Yes, yes, yes.
So are we witnessing big man syndrome in this country, especially under Ruto's regime, whereby this or that is an untouchable element?
Yes, it's a big man syndrome, because imagine someone, after what we have seen, someone is still receiving a salary. Like when you step aside, it just means you're just at home on leave and you still get paid. Someone is still receiving a salary. It's a slap in the face. And you have to be answerable to the Kenyan people. Like, how do you just go pick somebody and kill them as a state? And your job is to protect people. I know that one, a head must rule, not even one, several. There are levels of authority that must rule. And so, no, it's a slap in the face. Someone should be jailed for that.
Talking about the police force, the other day when you watched police officers walking side by side with goons during the Thursday protest in Nairobi, and some would wonder, should we also call for heads to roll to really understand why these goons were offered protection from the police, who were now out there to pounce brutality on peaceful protesters?
Absolutely. I have never seen anything like that, Menja. I've never seen anything like that, because even so when we got to town, already the atmosphere was strange. Okay, so you're seeing, the police in their trucks, whatever. People were actually, standing, singing, praying, and they just felt bothered, like, unatusumbua. So when the first canister of tear gas went, and people were dispersed, and then you start seeing the people in the motorbikes, it was really strange. I don't even know, people who went to town that day, we need to talk about how there were people with rungus directing traffic. I mean, I was like...
Jeshi ya governor.
Yeah, people with rungus directing traffic, people with motorbikes just riding how they want, and the police are just standing there. I mean, it was the scariest disorder I've ever seen. And there was a point where I was working with Bina, a friend of mine. We were passing, that overpass to Central, toward your
University of Nairobi.
and we stopped because we're seeing, cars are turning around, and we're just seeing this group of men with rungus and machetes coming now from Globe, coming up to Moy Avenue. And I just remember standing there we're not even in an election. It's not an election. We're still far from one, and there's already this mobilization of goons. The thing that worries me, one, we know it's politicians who have mobilized them, because they were so proud. So proud. People like Alai were over there tweeting about it. I mean, so proud. We have evidence. They have even put it from their own accounts, even videos. So we know that they are mobilized by politicians, one, for violence. And this politician is supposed to represent you, but they are here sending people to actually stab and beat you. And so for me, there's just a disconnect in terms of system. And then the second thing that was really, really concerning for me is when these people are activated, they're activated so early. Like I've told you, we're still quite far to an election. So now, see, watakuwa natafuta kazi.
True.
So last Tuesday, bwegze, tulifanya kazi poa, sucks. When is the next job?
Jeshi ni ya governor.
When is the next job? So now when you've activated them this early, I mean, this is a monster that you must keep feeding. Otherwise they'll come and eat you. Yeah.
In the fullness of time?
Oh yeah. You need you've
so these politicians
them.
could be digging their own grave and
they
political
will.
obituaries.
They will, because let's look here. By the time you're talking about mobilizing like 100 people.
Yeah.
Let's say you pay each of them 2K. Okay, how much is that?
200,000.
200,000. Okay, that's just for one day. That's just one day. Now, the protests, they're to continue and you keep sending them out. And we're 2 years to an election. Okay, let's say there are 2 protests in a week. That's 500,000 in a week. Now, you're doing that for a year and a half. Will you be able to sustain that?
This snake could come back and bite the owner.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they realize that they are awakening a monster that they cannot continue to feed. And what worries me is the more you utilize them, now even the more confident and organized they become. Like Tuesday was a bit chaotic. They were not quite sure. Tunawapiga, tunaiba, are we going to go to stores? That's why you saw some of them missing the mission and going and stealing computers. They have lost focus, okay? But then now, imagine they begin to now have a system.
An organized crime unit.
An organized crime unit that now, even you'll be like, but you are the ones who give them the bravado. You're the ones who gave them that confidence. How are you going to demobilize them? How are you going to demobilize them?
We are caught in disaster.
No.
To close this conversation about police brutality on dissenting voices, on peaceful protesters, and something comes to the air, a very formidable question, that then what's the place of IPOA? Because some would consider IPOA to be a toothless watchdog this far. What do you make of IPOA's conduct, even on the death of Albert Ojwang, pronouncement on similar cases that happened in the near past?
Toothless. It's unfortunate. Even though they are there. In fact, there was a time we were discussing, do we submit incidences to IPOA? And someone was like, IPOA will not do anything. But it's because they are there. They are supposed to. So you just do it as a formality. But you know you're not going to see anything come of it. And it's a sad thing when even during the protests last year, mothers of victims would go to IPOA and offices are empty. There is almost short-staffed. I mean, even just from the entrance, you already know that there's no help here, just from the appearance of the office itself. So it's toothless. And that's why it's left to the Kenyan people to do things like this in terms of investigating by themselves, finding people's identities, emails, accounts, and then now you're seeing an arrest. Imagine that's what it has become, where as a citizen, you're always on edge to do the work someone else is supposed to be doing. Because you know if you don't do it, it will not be done. Yeah. That's where we are. It's toothless.
Or now we leave the burden at the doorstep of LSK, Faith Odhiambo and the team.
Imagine. Consistency, like they're constantly I just don't even know how she does it. And it's shocking that LSK, you're there for 1 year, but the amount that Faith has done in 1 year, it's like she has done 6 years in office.
She's making her predecessors look like a joke, a big one.
It seems like she was elected for such a time as this. I think I congratulate
Now she's the
LSK.
version of a God-sent person.
I'm telling you. She was created for such a time as this. I don't think there could have been anybody else to be able to maneuver at that speed, that consistency, and that discipline. She's just constantly at the forefront.
Yerima, walk me through your thoughts on the conduct of ODM, which is now part of the broad-based government, when it comes to its pronouncement on these extrajudicial killings, how the government is handling dissenting voices. Do you feel this far there is need for us to applaud them for the statements they have made here or there, or even those ODM MPs who are saying, Ruto, for doing this, we're going to impeach you or walk out of this arrangement?
You know, I was going to ask you, Wenta, like, ODM's reaction has been confusing to me. They look confused. At one point, I think there was a post that the party did about stop killing us, or something like that. I mean, I have nothing to say about ODM.
Is this matrimony now under risks of collapsing, this broad-based government? Because you've seen Gladys Wanga take concern with President Ruto's regime, also a few other ODM MPs. Do you see this going to the 2027 elections, or there are going to be breakaways within the period?
It's going to be tough. There are going to be breakaways, especially people who have a conscience. It's going to be difficult for them to keep defending just the utter wrong of what's going on in the country. In fact, you know, I keep saying Karaoke better survive. He better survive. He better survive, because if he doesn't, it's going to spin the country in another direction. Kenyans witnessed firsthand brutality. And for ODM, normally, they would be out and vocal and calling it out and standing with their family. We have not seen them near this father in that hospital. They are MIA. And I feel like it is hurting some true members of ODM. ODM has changed, and I feel its new identity, there are people who are struggling with it, and there are people with conscience who are going to end up stepping out of it, because they cannot continue to double speak with what's going on in the country. You don't even know how to defend someone being shot running away. Yeah.
Much as they would say those were rubber bullets, still there's need for you to grant grace to the police force.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it, by the way. I would just lose my position, and probably that's why I'm not in a political party. I wouldn't even be able to say those are rubber bullets. Because, you know, for me, like, even when I watched that video, you know, that officer was upset that this guy is not running. He's like, why are you not afraid? You know, watu wanakimbia hapa, wewe umesimama.
You are not retaliating.
Why are you not retaliating? Like, he was angered that why are you not afraid of my presence, my authority, my weapon? And you know, the funny thing is, a lot of Kenyans, by the way, wamefika hapo. Just like, in the face of danger, you're just like, it doesn't have anything to do with me. Me, I'm here to do my job and sell masks. So he was just like, why am I running? It doesn't have anything to do with me. Why are you targeting me? And you notice, that's when he starts to hit him. And then when he's finally running, he's like, anyway, why am I even sparing you? Umenibo. That's when he shoots him. I mean, what kind of attitude is that? What kind of attitude is that? And sometimes I think that police, honestly, there's an officer, we went to town the next day. By the way, there was still tear gas in the air. People were wearing masks, sneezing and coughing. The next day still had tear gas. And there was still a bit of patrolling. And there's a police officer who said, hey, pray for us, I'm scared. Because these days, when I walk around, people are looking at me differently. It's like the public is just like, police, by the way, you're rubbing me the wrong way. You're just showing up in the news for the wrong reasons almost every day. Despite
there being one or two good officers.
I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, even that case of, see, there's a police officer who was shot yesterday.
True.
Killed.
Taker.
Yeah. Have you read the comments? Have you read the comments?
We sympathize and move on.
Hey, people are like, hata ni vizuri, you know? Yeah, anyway, it's fine. I mean, we are losing that utu, that sense of humanity, even for the police, and the police are seeing it. And they're like, wow, if we continue like this, the public will be against us. Where me just wearing my uniform, I can already feel the public is looking at me different. They are going to attack me. They are tired of me. It doesn't matter. We are all the same because we are wearing the same uniform. They are already feeling that pressure. And I think even for next week, they are really worried about how they are going to manage the crowds, manage June 25th. Because they are like, hapa tukiblanda again, we are done. Like, we keep striking. Yeah.
Talking about June 25th, the anniversary, do you have an impression that probably President Ruto's regime is already running scared, but they are playing in denial?
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yes, they are. We wouldn't be seeing so much police before that. We wouldn't.
There's talk of high-level retreat meetings to discuss on how they're going to handle the situation.
You know, they didn't need a retreat unless they want to just rest. It's very simple. Just let people congregate. Just leave people alone. Because it's not the public that provokes. The goons are obviously politically instigated. Tell politicians to leave goons alone. Just let people do what they want to do on that day. It will be fine. The Kenyan people are not violent. They are not the ones who want to create havoc. They are not. We know that. So they don't need a whole plan, a whole retreat, you know. Because they're the ones who are creating the chaos when they provoke the people.
Rightly put, Nerima. Now, shifting gears a bit, there has been this element which has been used to tame down, or literally to dampen the spirit of those in the civil society, in the activist space, and that is allegations of you are a paid activist. It's all about commercial activism, working at the behest of this or that non-state actor. Do you think going forward, this is something that can be used to further dampen or even dispirit some of these activists out here really championing for change in this country?
Yes, because, you know, sometimes even you can get angry because you're like, me, I'm doing it, by the way, because I have a child. And if someone like Albert can be shot at 31 or Karaoke is shot at 22, my son will be shot by the time he's 15 if we continue with this trajectory. And I just want him to have a future. So it angers me when people are over there like, you're paid, you're paid. We're paid. Politicians are paid to protect you, and they're paying people to come and stab you. Who should you be more angry with? And it's people that you hired. You're paid, you're paid. Are you the one who paid me? But you paid a politician, and you're just letting them do whatever they want. You're focusing on the wrong monster. You're focusing on the wrong thing. And normally, we ignore. Normally, we ignore. Because we're even like, some people who even say that are the ones who are even paid to blog that narrative. They're the ones who are paid by the state to say that. So you're just like, no, we will not engage. At the end of the day, we see what happens and what's true. But it's funny, because when you're walking in public, the number of people who stop you and say you're doing a good job, you're doing amazing, please keep up, we're looking up to you. We get much more of positive feedback in real life than we get online. So people don't be fooled with what people say online, it's fake.
They are now the real digital wankers.
Yeah, it's fake. What we see outside, people normally, there's no one who has ever come up and said, you're doing wrong, stop it, you're wasting time, you guys. No. People normally encourage, support, and they're asking, what more can I do? Those are the real people that we can see face to face. People online who are sitting in their houses who've never met us, they're just talking stories.
Keyboard warriors.
Jabba.
Neuma wako. So there is this thought that probably the Gen Z are gonna offer false affirmation to politicians, in the sense that they're gonna eat your money, they're gonna even clap for you during those rallies, but on the voting day they're gonna stand high on their conscience. Do you think this is gonna be the scenario that's gonna play out? We're gonna show up for your public rallies, get the money you're dishing out to us, but still hold my vote to the highest level of authenticity when it comes to making my voting choices?
I think we only have that chance with young people, people who are voting for the first time, people who are interacting with the system for the first time. I feel it's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. So we just agree that generation that has been doing this for decades, wataendelea kufanya hivyo.
200 bob na unasema wamama wako na wewe.
They will just continue to behave, and we're not expecting to change them. But I'm happy and opportunistic. I'm excited that this younger generation who has never interacted with that sort of system will be voting for the first time. There lies the opportunity, and there are much, much more. There are 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds today who will be voting in 2027, who have never interacted with these politicians. There's a lot of opportunity there. So I think, yes, it's possible to change dynamics. We've seen it in Nigeria. They were able to have a wave. Peter Obi, he came, he didn't win presidency, but when you look at the governors and councilmen and women who were elected, it's a wave. It was young people who decided they wanted change.
They were the wave of change.
They were the wave of change. It's just the presidency they missed out. But everywhere else, they actually changed their governance system. So it's possible.
Nirima, let's now talk about the transactions our government is getting into with other nations out here, or even government transactions they're in. We're talking about the expose by NTV, Brothers in Arms, the place of Kenya in the Sudan war. And we have talks of the president's government is engaged in arms dealing with our neighboring country. And begs the question, do you think that this fight, even as we're talking about 1,000 days of Ruto in office, it's shrouded in opaque transactions, and transactions that are not for the better good of Kenyans at large?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that now we have some evidence, you know. When we saw what had happened in Nairobi at KICC, and they were saying, no, there's no way that we would allow another country to come and announce its sovereignty on our land in Nairobi. But then now we are seeing signs of doublespeak, where they lie, when you're seeing Kenyan defense ammunition, and by the way, that's taxpayers' money again, in another country. And you are really saddened that these countries are in civil war, and you're like, we have a role to play in that. We played a role in that. And I believe that this government is shrouded on lies. It builds itself on lies. And it's something that if they're able to do it somewhere else, just best believe they're already doing it at home. They are doing it at home.
So you somewhat believe that Kenyans should have taken seriously the whistleblowing from Gachagua, that there's a government shrouded in these Opaque transactions, there's a police killer squad already in place, and such and such?
Yes, there's some truth to it. It might have come from a place of bitterness and anger, but there's some truth to it, and now we are seeing evidence of it.
Almost as we get to the wrap of this conversation, Nerima, we're now talking about Kenyans standing high on a place of morals when it comes to voting and principles. So how then do we build this culture in a bigger way before the 2027 elections? For this Gen Z who are still undecided on where they're going to cast their vote.
There's a lot of historical context that Gen Zs might not be aware of. I think the civic education needs to be beyond identifying good leaders. It's about understanding track records. Because the good thing is, a lot of these people who are fronting themselves for leadership, they have a trail of events in terms of their positions in government, in terms of what they were able to do in ministries. I would say that we need to do a lot more in educating Gen Zs on the histories of some of these people, and so that they can understand what they mean when they say that they support a particular individual. The second thing is utilizing our time. What I like about last year with June 25th was everything became political. You're at a club, people are singing Ruto must go. You go to a football game, people are singing Ruto must go. I mean, everywhere you went, entertainment, people were discussing some sense of politics. That's still happening, even in matatus today. People are still discussing some element of politics. And so it's important, especially for young people, to connect that politics affects my everyday life in every way. And finding out just how, and being concerned about what's going on in the country is important. And I feel that's the only way we can be able to start changing the narrative, because we don't have time. Like the problem that we have with our country, when you have a very young population and then 60% of it is unemployed, that is already depression in waiting. You're going to school, you can hardly afford it. People are struggling with help. This system is not even supporting people to remain in school. Then you come out, alafu na tarmac. That is so, I don't know, it's disappointing. You know, you're excited. You want to finish school so you can work, so you can build a life. And then you leave school and it's like, akuna.
But there's a promise of kazi maju from President Ruto.
That, you know, unapeleka watu maju and then they are being abused, harassed. Then you leave them. How many cases have we seen of people getting stuck in Saudi Arabia, people being conned? I mean, even these jobs that you're promising people are going there and they are seeing it's not even better. So, I mean, it's promises that are not being kept. And why do I want to go abroad? Do you know how these countries are doing everything they can to keep us back here? They don't want Africans there.
We are aliens.
Yeah, they don't want Africans there. So why are you taking me somewhere I'm not wanted? See, just fix my home so that I can stay home. Most of us, if there are opportunities here, we would not want to live here.
So these countries are already feeling that we have overstayed our welcome outside there.
Yeah, their main agenda is immigration. Their main agenda has been cutting aid. We've seen with the US starting. It has now made a ripple effect into Europe. There's discussions about, like Denmark, for instance, 0.7% goes toward aid. Sweden has already talked about reducing it to 0.5. Where is their money going? Defense. Where is it going to defense? Russia, Ukraine war, Iran, Israel. I mean, the world is just falling apart with the war. People are scared. They're trying to buy jets and protect their citizens. Us here, they are worried about sending us out.
2 term, the second term.
I know. No.
So the conversation about it's going to be kumi bila break remains by far a false illusion from the side of government.
I like what Sophie said, kuzurura bila break. I love her. You know what? I think they know they are going. I think they know they are going. They are not as confident as they were. That chest thumping, you know. A success from last year is the fact that finance bill, they've tried to pass it quietly. That shows you what wamestuka. Even there's a friend of mine who was saying jana they were going to parliament and they had gone with the under tunnel. Walikuwa wamevaa jeans. And they bumped into some members of parliament. Wakaanza kustuka, Jensi wamefika! They're still scared.
The fear is still in them.
They're scared. I think June is their worst month. They're just like, Kai, they might come for us again.
Even for George Kaluma, who's been so bold about it.
Oh my goodness. You saw that post.
I did.
I'm so happy.
I wonder of the silence.
I love Kremlin. Whoever Kremlin is.
You need such more doses.
Yes. Zitoe. Zote. It's time. Mulika. Yeah, it's time.
Finally, Nerima. Now, as we head to this high-octane kind of politics, some would wonder, what's going to be your clarion call to our president today, just so he doesn't make sure he leaves this country when it has already run to the dogs? What's your call to action for him?
Let Kenyans, you know, do what they want to do on the 25th. You know, emphasize on the police just remaining still and protecting the people. That's it. Just move out of the way. Yeah. When you start trying to control and manage, that's when things just get out of hand. And so just leave room for people and push for people to be held accountable. We can't be having 60 plus people dead and there's nothing. You know, even we've forgotten about even the Kware, the
Massacre.
murders.
Yeah.
I mean, how does life just go? And no answers, nothing. We're supposed to just wake up every day as if nothing happened. Rex Masai's case is ongoing. His case was yesterday as well. And to hear them say under oath that it was rubber bullets, but someone is dead. I mean, it doesn't matter even if it's a plastic bullet. Someone is dead. And we still don't have answers as to who did it. Punishment. The president should have already had people in jail, arrested. This case should have been expedited. Families should have been compensated. You're giving 2 million to Albert's dad, and these other mothers and fathers, 60 plus, in 1 year alone. We have not even talked about the previous years. I mean, no, the way we treat life, it's like it's dispensable. We can't continue to live like that.
Finally, what's your call to Gen Zs who are looking forward to the 25th of June anniversary? And probably they're wondering, are we also going to be met with these bullets, be it rubber, be it real bullets? What should we do? And they want to get that sense of direction from Nerima Wako as a representative sort of the civil society.
I would say do what makes you feel safe. I think that there are some people who are going to be having their own engagements, vigils. It's a day of remembrance. Respect that day because even what happened in terms of the number of lives lost. And it was just people who love their country. They want good governance, accountability, no corruption. I mean, it's a beautiful story. Young people coming out and saying, I love my country, I want a good country. I think this is a day that needs to consistently be remembered. And do how you would like to do it. For me, I'll be on the streets. I will be escorting the mothers. Rex Masai's mother actually did a presser. She's the one who submitted a letter to OCS. She wants answers. Who killed her son and the rest, the 60 plus that we know are dead, and over 20 that we know are missing. And it's a day of remembering those who were lost and gone, and just reminding government that we will not forget, and we want answers for these lives that have been lost. And we have seen you're exactly the same you were a year ago. Even the cabinet you dissolved, you went and hired these people again. You're exactly the same. And though we're talking about having a bad relationship and bad partners, tumewaona. So it means we break up. Hey! Just waiting for the breakup.
It's gonna come.
Yeah. A healthy me, I want a healthy relationship. I must break up with you. So if I have to wait till 2027, I will wait, but we are breaking up.
And for you, Nerima Wako, your weapon of choice on 25th, still it will be just a smartphone, water bottle, and probably the flag. Just that?
Just that. Water bottle, flag, mask, toothpaste, hopefully we won't need it, and flowers. We're going with flowers. Yeah.
Well, there you have it from Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place. She's doing phenomenal work out here in the civic space. We thank you so much for slating time for this particular production.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your insights. We had missed you on the show.
Oh, thanks.
I hope now we'll go bigger, better, more harder next time, as we've always done before.
Yes.
But thank you so much for your presence here.
Thank you.
Until we get to do this again on Richard Mwenje Exclusive, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. We'll do this again with Nerima Wako Ojiwa next week, Saturday, 7:30 p.m.